In the name of God, I am Kaman Kashi, and I am here with the 12th part of the International Trade Terms Training, Part B. Well, in Part A, we reviewed some maritime terms related to containers together, and in Part B, we are going to go over the rest of them. Stay with me. The first terms we want to get familiar with in this lesson are strip and stuff. As you can see in this image, the left side shows container stripping and the right side shows container stuffing, which I will explain to you in the next slide. As you can see, strip means unloading goods from inside a container, and stuff means loading goods into a container. This process is usually carried out inside container yards using specialized equipment, tractors, forklifts, and by skilled personnel at container terminals and warehouses. In the illustration we've provided here, the image on the left shows the stuffing operation, meaning loading, and the image on the right shows the stripping operation, meaning unloading taking place. One of the most important terms used in maritime transport is free time, a term you've probably heard many times, like when people say the free time for a particular container has ended, or the shipping line's free time is a certain amount. Let's see what free time actually means. As you can see in the illustration, when an empty container is picked up, a certain amount of free time is allocated for it. Then the container is filled and moves toward the terminal so that the loaded container can be loaded onto the ship. But during this entire period when the container is in the possession of the cargo owner, not all of that time is free for the customer. Only a specific period is considered free. Now let's review the definition provided here together. It states that when a container lease contract is signed for sea transport, a period called free time at the origin and free time at the destination is specified. This period determines the specified number of days the cargo owner can retain possession of the container without paying a late penalty. What does this mean? It means that when you receive the empty container from the shipping line, you are given a certain number of days to load your cargo into the container and return it to the shipping line so that it can be loaded onto the ship. If your loading takes longer than the allowed number of days, which is called free time, you will have to pay a fee or a penalty for the extra time. We will talk more about this later. Conversely, when your full container is unloaded at the destination and officially handed over to the owner of the goods, the owner also receives a specific amount of free time to unload the container. Within this free time, they must unload the container and return it to the shipping line. If they manage to do this within the allowed period, that's fine. But if not, they will have to pay a fee as a penalty to the shipping line for each extra day the container remains in their possession. Here you can see the origin free time mentioned. The time frame starts from the moment the empty container is picked up from the empty container depot until the full container is delivered. The destination free time is the period from when the full container is picked up from the container yard until the empty container is returned to the yard. One important point to keep in mind about free time is that shipping lines generally define a standard free time, both at the origin and at the destination, which is usually 7 or 10 days. If these 7 or 10 days are exceeded, penalties will apply. Typically, this standard free time is similar across different shipping lines. You've probably heard that some cargo owners, knowing that the unloading process at the destination will take a long time, request additional destination free time from the shipping line right when they're booking. For example, instead of 7 days, they might ask for 14, 21, or even 28 days of free time at the destination. You're likely familiar with this, and it's all to avoid paying penalties at the destination or to reduce the amount of penalty they have to pay. Now, let's see what these penalties are and discuss them in the next slide. If the cargo owner, whether at the origin or the destination, cannot return their container to the shipping line within the standard free time they've been given, during which they are exempt from paying penalties, they will be subject to a penalty called demurrage or detention. Now we're going to define each of these terms one by one to see what demurrage is and what detention is. Here, both for export and import, it's illustrated for you, showing what demurrage and detention are. When I explain these definitions in the slides, you'll understand this diagram better. Demurrage, or the so-called stoppage fee, is actually a term used in maritime transport and refers to the penalty for the late return of a container, which is paid by the cargo owner, whether at the origin or the destination. Now, if this fee applies while the container is inside the customs area, this term is called demurrage. But if the container is outside the customs area and this fee applies, it is called detention. As you can see in this diagram on the left side, you see a container actually placed on this truck, but it says that as long as this container is in the warehouse or outside the customs area, if a storage fee applies to it, it is called detention. But when it enters the customs area, it is called demurrage. On the right side of the diagram, it's exactly the same. Now, if you go back to the previous slide and actually review those two export and import procedures, you'll see that it explained exactly this. As long as your container was outside the customs area and hadn't entered the CY, detention applies to it. And when it enters the customs area, demurrage applies. So, in fact, the definition is the same. The definition is that if you keep the container with you beyond the allowed time it should be in your possession, whether at the origin or the destination, a penalty or storage fee will apply. The name of this penalty or storage fee outside the customs area is detention, and inside the customs area it is demurrage. An important point to know about demurrage and detention is that these fees have specific tariffs set by the Ports and Maritime Organization, and when these tariffs are published, they specify, for example, after the end of the 10-day free time, from the 11th day to the 20th day, what fee we have to pay for each 20-foot or 40-foot container. From the 21st day to the 30th day, it's the same, and it continues like that after that as well. And these are all completely itemized and specified for each container and for each procedure, which we can actually obtain from the Ports Organization's website for each year and use them. And the last term we have in today's lesson is the term port storage. Port storage or port warehousing fee is a charge that is collected from cargo owners for keeping containers in the container yard. This particular fee, much like the demurrage fee as well as the container detention fee, encompasses a specific number of days, which are commonly referred to as free days, or in other words, days that are completely exempt from any payment obligation. After these designated free days have elapsed, the cargo owner is then required to pay a specific tariff, which is charged as a storage fee for the continued use of the port's facilities. To put it another way, when your shipping containers remain in the container yards for a period that exceeds the allowed or permitted duration, you are obligated to pay the port authorities a storage fee for the physical space that your containers continue to occupy within the port area. There is always a certain number of initial days that are provided free of charge and are fully exempt from any payment, but once this initial period has passed, the meter essentially starts running and the total amount due is calculated in accordance with the applicable tariff schedule. It is important to note that you must pay this storage fee directly to the port authorities at the time when you go to pick up or retrieve your container from the port's premises.